Hey guys, it's Jennifer. The story I'm about to tell you is about the entire mind, body, soul experience of recovery from complex trauma. It could apply just as well to someone who has lived with that heavy weight of never-ending survival stress that is so pervasive in current cultures that our nervous systems and mental processes have to organize around. I have disguised this as a fairy tale using archetypal storytelling in which all the pieces of the story are part of one person's psyche. In this case, it's someone who has been through a lot, so much that she has lost herself in many ways. This is really her journey of finding herself again. If you're on a similar journey, this is for you. Just so you know, in the next video, I will explain the symbolism that I used in writing this. For now, I would love for you just to sit back and enjoy part one of the heroine's becoming. Once there was a girl who was ordinary and extraordinary all at once. As you'll soon see, her life was never meant to be easy. Yet her spirit had been forged to carry the powers of bravery, justice, and fierce compassion. Yes, this little girl was destined to one day become a heroine. Our future heroine was born into a royal lineage in a land filled with lush beauty and abundant resources. But at its borders, there was darkness and struggle in every direction. Tragically, the girl's parents, the king and queen, had disappeared very early in her life. They had gone for a ride through the woods that bordered the castle and were never seen or heard from again. Our heroine was left with few memories of her parents, but she did have an older sister, the crown princess, who remembered everything. And the princess was so joyful, always bubbling with energy. The heroine loved sitting and listening to her tell lively stories. Yet, there was something odd about the crown princess that became more and more apparent as time went by. You see, she wasn't growing up. Although she had seemingly been around much longer than our heroine in appearance and behavior, she was much younger. It was almost as if she was frozen in time. No one seemed to know why, but it just was what it was. Life went on. Our heroine grew to be fiercely protective of her little big sister. Now the kingdom where they lived was so small and very vulnerable. Their army would try to erect walls to fight back against the hostile outside forces, but the attacks just kept on coming. Eventually, it became clear they were no match for what they were up against. With nothing more they could do, the chief of the army brought news to the royal counselors. It was inevitable. The kingdom would be conquered. How could they protect the little royal children under such horrific circumstances? Particularly the crown princess, whose role was very vital for the future of the kingdom. The army chief and counselors determined it was a life or death situation. What they had to do would not be easy or without sacrifice, but it was necessary to preserve life, along with any hope that this kingdom would rise to its full power and potential in the future. This was their plan. The crown princess would be hidden, but with no viable, safe place to go, she would also need to be in plain sight. It was her identity, the essence of her princessness, that would need to be locked away. She would have to learn to act her age or maybe older, grow up quickly. No more telling stories, no dancing or singing or playing music. For all her brightness and vitality and talents could bring a dangerous amount of attention and possibly reveal her true identity. Instead, she would be in the village, where she would have to learn to be plain, quiet, fit in. Even though she was so small and delicate, she would need to work just as hard or harder than anyone else. You might think, well, that doesn't sound too bad. I mean, everyone has to work, right? The princess will still have her sister, the heroine, by her side, making sure she's treated well enough, right? Well, no, not really. You see, the royal council and army chief came to the logical but harsh conclusion the safest bet was to separate the sisters. They knew that the heroine, although still quite young, was a bit of a firecracker. She was not going to stand by quietly while the princess was being treated this way, and her army chief was surrendering to outside forces. Oh no. She would be raising hell, and that could put the entire kingdom in danger. So something else was going to have to be done with our heroine. The royal counselors called for a potion to be made and given to our heroine, specifically an immobilizing potion of fear. Now, maybe you think, This would not work on someone built for bravery, but perhaps it worked better. You see, that fear induced by the potion would trigger such a rush of energy. It was more than her little body could handle. She'd want to fight against whatever might be causing the danger, but suddenly she felt like her body was a ton of bricks, and a wave of sleepiness would wash over her. And so our poor drugged heroine was put in a lonely little cottage, given what she needed to survive, and steadily dosed with enough of the potion of fear to keep her very sleepy, foggy, and detached from realizing what was going on. I would love to tell you this was over quickly, but that wouldn't be true. Our heroine lived like this for many years, spending her days feeling like she was carrying a ton of bricks, putzing around in a fog, struggling with waves of anxiety, and generally trying to remember what she was supposed to be doing. The even stranger and sadder thing was, even after the threat to the kingdom had passed, no one seemed to see fit to return the heroine and the crown princess to their rightful places in the kingdom. Even with no one coming to the rescue, there was a little good news. They forgot about dosing our heroine with the potion of fear. In time, she began to feel a sense of safety again, and the weight and the fog slowly began to lift. As that ancient feeling of comfort and warmth arose within her, she started to remember. At first, it was just a little tug of her mind, as if she'd forgotten something important. And then the dreams came, where she would hear a sweet little child's voice, laughing, telling stories. The memories tickled frustratingly at the edge of her consciousness, still cloaked in a fog. She tried to pull them closer, but they were always just out of reach. Finally, one night as she slept, she saw a busy little village and heard a child crying. No, sobbing. The villagers seemed oblivious. Why wasn't anyone helping the poor child? This time, she woke up and jumped straight out of bed. My sister, what happened to her? At this point, our poor heroine was hit by a different ton of bricks. The shocking realization that something had gone very wrong in her kingdom, and that her sister, the crown princess, was in trouble. Yet what could she do? She was alone, ill-equipped, unsupported, unprepared. Just trying to think about it felt overwhelming. And for a moment, that familiar, cold, heavy weight began to seep into her system, making her so very sleepy. But something was different now. Pausing, she caught hold of what had shifted. That's it, she realized. Breathing into the space where the potion had previously created wiry barbs, constricting her every move. And with each breath, oxygen seemed to be clearing the residue of fear from her system. And at that moment, although it still felt nearly impossible, she willed herself to fight against the exhausted trance, as her body had become so used to falling into it. With another purposeful breath, she pushed her tired little brain to think, there must be a way. I will do whatever it takes. With little to go on but the sparking embers of her own determination, our heroine gathered a few necessities and headed out into the woods. And today, those woods are where we find her. I'd love for you to imagine it's all happening neither long ago nor far away, but that you're watching it right in front of you. Feel the process of becoming and embodying your own power along with our heroine as much as you wish. It will be a fun and also a wild ride. Perhaps you can relate to this pivotal point we land on in her journey, taking those brave, hope-fueled first steps on a path you couldn't turn away from. Also, maybe being blissfully unaware of what awaits. Like if we knew how harrowing our journeys might be, maybe we'd just go back to sleep, but not really. We would still take the path along with all its tough lessons and rude awakenings, because in the long run, really, it forges our souls into who we were born to be. As for our heroine, I'm afraid we're at that point where she gets one of those rude awakenings. She's really doing her best to make progress, still working hard to shake off the effects of spending years immobilized. She's needing to take way more time and rest than she'd like, but she's also starting to come alive in ways she hasn't felt for a long time. And that feels pretty good. As she's plugging along on the path, something catches her eye. Oh, a big stick. Well, that could be helpful. She gets closer. The sun catches the thing, and the color shifts. It's green, almost iridescent. And then A twitch. Slowly, the thing is moving. Okay, it's definitely not a stick. Our heroine's curiosity is piqued at this point, and if any red flags are waving in her brain, she pushes them aside. All she wants to know is what this gorgeous, glinting emerald creature is. As she comes upon it, it becomes apparent it's much larger than she initially thought. Another twitch, a flick. For a second, she hesitates, but my word, the color, the texture, it's almost hypnotically beautiful. And so she leans closer. So gorgeous, she whispers admiringly. Yes. And in an instant, the gently flicking tail disappears into the brush. The other end of the creature appears face to face with our heroine. And before she knows what is happening, its thick, strong body coils tightly around her tiny self. She tries to wriggle from its grasp, but oddly, she's not afraid. Not very strong, the snake muses. You're not surprised. The snake talks, right? Our heroine isn't either. No, but she is a bit insulted and wriggles with more effort, but no results. Stop squeezing me! The snake maintains its grip and flips her upside down, its enormous green head coming right up to hers. So sorry, but if I don't squeeze, how will I make sure you're still alive? At this point, the snake gently jostles her like a salt shaker. Strangely, even with this disconcerting statement, our heroine still isn't scared, but she is starting to get really ticked off. In fact, a fierce, fiery rage is building inside of her. It's more energy than she's felt in a very long time. Believe it or not, for a moment, that unfamiliar rage rising through her cells feels more scary than the snake itself. But it also feels right. Let me go, our heroine screams in a voice she doesn't even recognize as her own. Soon enough, hisses the creature, and with that it whips into the woods, pulling her along at almost breakneck speed. A short time that feels like a very long time later, the snake comes to a stop in a clearing, rapidly uncoiling and unceremoniously dropping our heroine into the dirt. She looks the massive beast in the eye as she tries to catch her breath. This is good. You're so awake now. The snake looks back at her as if admiring its own handiwork, and for a few moments they just stare at each other. Scoop! On your way now, directs the snake. Our heroine stares back incredulously, that fierce energy rising in her little body once again. On my way! Where are we even? Where's the path? The snake weaves its head from side to side as if confused. Where's what path? The one I was on when you found me, of course. Our heroine spits back. Oh, but I didn't find you. You found me. Looking inquisitively, the snake pauses and then realizes that wasn't really the question. Sorry to disappoint. We can't go backwards. The path no longer exists. How can it not? What do you mean? For starters, it doesn't exist because we're no longer where we began. Secondly, it was never the path you were going to take. The snake almost chuckles as if this is the most obvious thing in the world. After a moment of dumbfounded silence, our heroine finds the fire rising inside again. How dare you interrupt my mission? She surprises herself with the force of these words, having not considered fully that she is indeed on an important mission that no one should get in the way of. And as that fresh wave of emotion swells up, hot tears come to our heroine's eyes, and she finds herself crumpled in the dirt, sobbing. The snake comes closer. Your Highness, I exist only in service to your mission. With those words, if you can imagine it, and I think you can, the enormous emerald iridescent creature takes a reverent bow and settles itself on the ground in front of our heroine. You might think all this would be really confusing, and it is. Yet deep in her bones, our heroine understands. It's as if this powerful creature has always been with her, quietly waiting for her to really need it. Even though at the moment, the only help it had given involved shaking her up, removing her from the path she was on, and pretty much turning her world upside down. Still, somehow she knows she can trust it. So you'll help me find my sister. You know what way to go. Oh no, replies the snake, gently curling up around our heroine as if to provide a layer of protection. You show me the way so I may use my power to clear your path. Our heroine is tired by now, but perhaps she almost feels more alive than she has in a long time. And as she allows herself to relax, leaning into the support of her newfound ally, she feels a warm current of energy rising through her body as if she's rooted into the earth, and it is sending life force right up through her center, clearing out all the armoring, wiry barbs, and blocks her body had formed to deal with the potion of fear. As all that bright, beautiful, tingly energy flows up through her heart and all the way up, up, up through the top of her head. Our heroine knows with crystal clarity the path is right in front of her. She already knows the way. That is the end of part one. In our next video, again, I'm going to explain the symbolism used in the story. I hope you'll also join us for part two, where we find out what happens next on the heroine's journey. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next video.